Hello, everyone. It's Helen McConnell here from helenmcconnell.com, and I want to welcome you to our weekly Tapping for Courage Cards episode. I want to explain something about courage cards. First of all, they were inspired and sort of downloaded, if you will, from Spirit through my friend Ivana Polonio. And she and Kristen Anderson did the art for these cards, and they created a full 52 oracle deck of amazing cards. And what is so interesting to me, and it always has been about any kind of oracle cards, is how timely they always are. When I draw a card, it's perfect. So this past week, for a little over a week, I have been working on the patterns in my life, investigating the patterns. And this isn't the first time I've done this, but it's come up big and important for me this week. And when I first started tapping about 15 years ago, one of the things I really noticed is that we all are patterned beings. Humans are very patterned. And by that, I mean some patterns are really obvious and some are more subtle, but we can unravel those patterns and change our lives drastically. So, for example, this couple of weeks, I have been wanting to add into my life a healthier aspect to eating and release from my life overeating. Because when I eat, I just unconsciously overeat pretty regularly. So I kind of got thinking about patterns and how this pattern of overeating started when I was really young. Now, not like 2 or 3, because when I was that age, we didn't have food around to overeat on. My parents didn't have snacks, and we just had a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and no dessert and no extra portions or anything. You couldn't have seconds. That's not a bad thing. I think that was probably pretty healthy. But the one thing I know when I was young, and it carried through much of my life until the last 10 years or so, is that I didn't love myself. I was waiting for others to love me so that I could know that I'm lovable. And I want to tell you, if you ever feel that way, that you are waiting for someone else to prove that you're lovable, it just won't work. You have to learn to love and accept yourself. Certainly, we can get that information, we can get that sort of affirmation from the people around us. But the more we can love and accept ourselves, the more we will find that others love and accept us as well. So I've been coming back around to patterns. And in my mind, patterns usually go in a spiral shape. They start in the middle, they go around, and each time around the spiral, each time around the wheel, we bump up against the same patterns. So why I'm mentioning that is because the card that I drew for today's video from the Courage Cards deck is Change the Patterns. And this is why I just love all this. Like, I didn't go looking for this card. I wasn't even consciously aware that this card was in here. I'm just going to put an image of that card up here on the screen. As I always do, I'm going to read the card and then I'm going to give you a couple comments, then we'll do some tapping. Okay. And I think tapping for changing patterns is so powerful, but it takes some knowledge, some experience, and it may take many passes to make the changes we really want because these patterns are so deeply embedded. So don't give up. All right, so here's what it says for change the patterns. When painful challenges arise, notice how old negative patterns take over. Isn't that what I was just saying? Like this food thing. Well, and feeling unloved, feeling like I have a void inside. I was an alcoholic for many years, and that's the same thing. I just never felt loved. And I always, the way I used to describe it is I feel like I'm trying to fill a void. We can't fill a void with food or alcohol or drugs or sex. We can sometimes fill it with spirit. That's about it. And we can use tapping to help release the void. Do your thoughts spiral into fear, doubt, or frustration? Does your mind make things harder than they are? Recognizing the pattern is the first step Instead of feeding stress, choose a new response. Now, this is just so spot on with what I've been working on. Every choice is a chance to reframe the story, shift your perspective, and create a new pattern. Using matrix reimprinting, which is a tapping technique, we're able to go back with our clients to their younger years or to the true core of these patterns. Where did this pattern start? Now think about it. Can you remember when this thing actually started? Most of us can't really remember the first time. But what we can notice, and I always tell people this, if you can think back to your earliest conscious memory of anything and sense into, say, you're 2 years old, ask your 2-year-old self if she had this issue when she was two of feeling like a void, like and unloved. And in my case, yes, I think I came into this world feeling that way. So to me, that's an inherited, so it goes back even further than my birth. It goes back to my parents and grandparents. I don't want to get too involved in all of that, so I'm going to make it as simple as I can today, but know that there is tons of tapping techniques that are very helpful. And I encourage you to find a professional to work with on old inherited traumas. I can't teach you everything about tapping in a few minutes or even in a few weeks. But one thing I will tell you is as soon as you notice something or you're wanting to work on something, just start tapping. What that does immediately, if you're aware of anything that's going on in your body, any bodily sensations, you will begin to feel a little calmer. You might notice yourself taking a deeper breath. Maybe your shoulders drop in relaxation, something like that. You might just notice some internal shifts, and that's what we really want to look for. And this kind of tapping, tapping on the side of your hand right there, begins that process. It tells the nervous system, I'm safe. Okay? And since I'm working on something that's really, really old, I'm just going to give you kind of an overview, and at some other point, I'll go into the whole matrix thing, or you can watch me working with a client using matrix reimprinting. I'm wanting to undo this pattern from way back when. So, what's my setup statement? I'm tapping here some more. Even though, and you can repeat this with me, along with me. For as long as I can remember, I have felt unloved and like I have a void in me, an emptiness. And I'm willing to love and accept myself now. Okay, and then we're going to say that again. And even though this feeling goes back as far as I can remember, which is an indication that I probably inherited it, I'm willing to love and accept myself now. And I'm willing to change that early designated pattern. And one more time. Even though, as I have felt unloved, and that felt like an emptiness or a void, and my whole life I've been trying to fill that void with food, with drugs, with alcohol, with sex. I love and accept myself. And I choose to know that right here, right now, it's safe for me to change this pattern at its root. All right. And like I said, you're probably going to have to do this several different times. Just go to the top of your head and say, this old pattern on the eyebrow, this feeling like I'm unloved, side of the eye. This old pattern under the eye, the feeling like a void inside of me, under the nose, an emptiness that can't be filled, on the chin. And the two are very related. Collarbone. So every time I have felt unloved, under the arm, I've tried to fill that emptiness, top of the head, with food, on the eyebrow, especially sugar, side of the eye, with alcohol, with drugs, under the nose with sex, on the chin. And for the purpose of this tapping, collarbone, I'm specifically focused on food, under the arm. I've tried to eat my way into feeling loved. Top of the head, and you can't see my hand down here, but I'm putting it on my belly. I've tried to fill my belly on the eyebrow so I wouldn't have that emptiness. Side of the eye. I often eat until I can't eat anymore, under the eye. And I've often described it as a hug from within, under the nose, when my belly is so full that it's pressing against me, on the chin. And I appreciate that I did this for myself. Collarbone. I tried to make myself feel loved, under the arm, by eating more, top of the head. And you know what? On the eyebrow, it never worked. Side of the eye. Maybe for a few minutes, under the eye. But then later I felt horrible, under the nose. And then it became a habit, on the chin, and an addiction. Collarbone. And I have been in bondage to that feeling, under the arm, and that response, top of the head, ever since. Okay, we're going to do one more round. Just say this pattern, side of the eye, of eating as a response, under the eye. This pattern, under the nose. It has never served me. On the chin. I'm ready to let this pattern go. Collarbone. I'm choosing to interrupt this pattern right now, under the arm, and become aware of my emotions, top of the head, before I eat. All right, just take a deep breath there. As you can see, that's a pretty long tapping round for this video series, pretty long, which tells you this is a deeply embedded, very complex issue. Today, I'm just dealing with the pattern part. Just begin to become aware of the pattern and tap every time. Before you eat anything, if you tap a little bit before you eat, you're going to notice over time that you begin to do things differently. Tapping interrupts your patterned reaction. All right, I know this is a long video, but I want to give you a very short interruption procedure that you can use that's a little shorter than all the details I just did there. So you just tap like this and you go, I'm feeling hungry. Top of the head. Of course, I want to eat, on the eyebrow. But as I stop and become aware of the hungry feeling, Side of the eye. Before I eat anything, under the eye, I'm noticing what I've been feeling and thinking. Under the nose. And I'm choosing now on the chin to interrupt this pattern of thinking a thought under the arm, feeling a feeling, top of the head, and trying to quiet the feeling. Okay, just take a nice deep breath there. You can do this video several times a day if you want. You can use that little short thing I did at the end there. You can do that throughout the day. Just make yourself a short video sort of emergency script. And if you want to write it on a note card or something, keep it with you. But you'll remember it very quickly if you do it all day. Do it as many times during the day as you want. And at some point, if you're around other people and you don't want to use the words in front of them, just think the words and use the words when you can. And once again, I hope you find this helpful. I just want to reiterate a couple things from there. It says recognizing the pattern is the first step. So becoming aware of yourself as a whole being. And these patterns, you, like me, probably did not have a thought mentor to help you interrupt these patterns at their earliest stages. I mean, if we were all fortunate enough to have such a thing, our parents wouldn't have ever tried to give us food to make us feel better and would have said to us things like, I love you, even if you feel unloved. I love you so much, right? If we'd heard all that. So now we get to do it for ourselves. I'm not blaming our parents. Instead of feeding stress, choose a new response. So that's the final step is after you do this tapping, take a deep breath and think, what could I do instead? Have a couple of things you can do instead of eating. Take a walk around the block. Do a few minutes of yoga. Jump up and down. Swing your arms around. Take some deep breaths. Do anything other than eating. You know, we live in a country and a time where food is available 24/7 for most of us. And a lot of it isn't really food, it's just stuff that we're encouraged to eat. And so that's not good either. Not good. We want to be healthy, happy, calm, relaxed, and whole. So go back to your roots, not necessarily your real, like the roots that you remember, your parental roots, but go past that to spirit. Before you came into this human body, you were part of spirit and you were loved and you knew it. And then you came into this world, and even if your parents outwardly loved you, there's a lot of rejection that we feel coming into this world. And when people tell us, oh no, you can't do that, or you don't want to do that, or that's not okay, when it is really okay, it's very disruptive to our system. And everything we're doing here with the tapping and the courage cards is to bring our nervous system and all of our bodily systems into alignment so we can be happy and healthy. All right, that's enough from me. I hope you'll be here again next week when we do another courage card. Thanks for joining.